Have you ever looked up at a plane flying overhead and thought, could I actually learn to fly one of those? The answer is yes, and it's probably more achievable than you think. But before you jump in a cockpit, there are a few things you need to have in order. Licenses, certificates, medical clearances. It sounds complicated, but once you understand how the system works, it's actually pretty straightforward. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what you need to legally fly a plane in the USA. Step by step, no fluff. We'll cover the medical certificate, the licenses, the tests, and at the end, I'll tell you exactly how much the whole thing costs and how long it realistically takes. If you want clear, no-nonsense guides like this, hit subscribe. I keep it simple and practical. Whether you're seriously thinking about learning to fly or you're just curious how it all works, stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know more about becoming a pilot than most people ever will. Let's get into it. Before you touch an airplane, before you sign up for a single flight lesson, there's one thing you need to take care of first: your medical certificate. A lot of people don't know this exists until they're already deep into the process. And some find out the hard way that a medical condition they never thought about becomes a roadblock. So let's clear this up right from the start. The FAA requires all pilots to hold a valid medical certificate, and there are 3 classes depending on what kind of flying you want to do. Third class is what you need as a private pilot. It's the most basic level and covers recreational flying. Second class is required for commercial pilots, and first class is for airline pilots who are flying passengers professionally every day. For most people watching this video, third class is all you need to worry about. To get it, you book an appointment with an Aviation Medical Examiner, an AME, who is essentially a doctor certified by the FAA to evaluate pilots. The exam itself is pretty straightforward. They check your vision, your hearing, your blood pressure, your heart, and your general health. It usually takes about 30 minutes and costs somewhere between $100 and $200 depending on where you go. Now here's something a lot of beginners don't know about: BasicMed. This is an alternative to the traditional medical certificate that was introduced in 2017 to make things easier for private pilots. Instead of seeing an FAA examiner, you just visit your regular doctor for a standard checkup, complete a short online medical course, and you're good to go. It's simpler, cheaper, and more accessible. But it does come with some limitations on the type of aircraft you can fly and where you can fly it. The most common things that can complicate your medical are vision problems, heart conditions, diabetes, and certain medications. None of these are automatic disqualifiers, but they do require extra documentation and review. The important takeaway here is simple: get your medical sorted early. Don't spend months training and thousands of dollars only to discover a medical issue at the end. It's the first step for a reason. Once your medical is sorted, the next thing you need is your student pilot certificate. This is your official entry point into aviation, the document that legally allows you to start flying. A lot of people are surprised to learn that getting a student pilot certificate is actually incredibly simple. There's no written test. There's no flight exam. You don't need to demonstrate any skills at all at this stage. You just need to apply through the FAA's online system, called IACRA, provide some basic identification, and that's essentially it. The certificate is free and gets issued electronically. The minimum age to apply is 16 years old for powered aircraft like the planes we've been talking about. If you're interested in gliders or balloons, that drops to 14. There's no upper age limit. As long as you hold a valid medical certificate, age is not a barrier to learning to fly. So what does the student pilot certificate actually allow you to do? It gives you the legal right to fly solo, meaning without an instructor in the airplane with you. But, and this is important, you cannot just go fly on your own the moment you get it. Before any solo flight, your flight instructor has to evaluate you, determine you're ready, and provide a solo endorsement in your logbook. That endorsement is specific to the airport and aircraft you'll be flying, and it has to be renewed regularly. Think of the student certificate as permission to be in the process. It doesn't mean you're ready to fly alone. It means the system recognizes you as someone who is officially training. During this phase, you'll be spending a lot of time with your certified flight instructor, or CFI. They'll take you through the basics: straight and level flight, turns, climbs, descents, takeoffs, and landings. The first solo flight, which typically happens somewhere between 10 and 20 hours of training, is a milestone that most pilots remember for the rest of their lives. Your logbook becomes your most important document during this period. Every flight gets recorded: the date, the aircraft, the duration, and what you practiced. That logbook follows you throughout your entire aviation career, so take it seriously from day one. The Private Pilot License, or PPL, is the real goal for most people who decide to learn to fly. This is the certificate that takes you from student to actual pilot. It's what allows you to fly passengers, plan your own trips, and operate as a fully independent aviator. But getting there requires work. The FAA sets a minimum of 40 flight hours to qualify for the Private Pilot Checkride. But here's the reality: most people finish closer to 60 to 70 hours. The national average sits right around 65 hours. The 40-hour minimum is technically possible, but it's rare. Flying is a skill that develops at different rates for different people, and there's no shortcut to building genuine competence in the cockpit. Those hours aren't just free flying either. The FAA breaks them down into specific requirements. You need at least 20 hours of flight training with an instructor, covering things like navigation, night flying, and instrument basics. You also need 10 hours of solo flight time, which includes at least one cross-country solo where you fly to an airport more than 50 nautical miles away. That solo cross-country is a major confidence builder. It's just you, the airplane, and the open sky. Along the way, your instructor will be signing off on specific areas of your training, what the FAA calls endorsements. Each one confirms you've demonstrated the necessary competency in a particular skill before moving on. Beyond the flying itself, there's ground training to complete. You need to understand weather, navigation, regulations, aerodynamics, and aircraft systems. This is usually done through a combination of lessons with your instructor and self-study, often using online courses or textbooks. What does the PPL actually unlock when you have it? Quite a lot. You can fly any single-engine piston aircraft you're checked out in. You can carry passengers, you can fly at night, you can fly into controlled airspace and communicate with air traffic control. You can plan and execute cross-country trips across the entire country. What you can't do is get paid to fly. The private license is exactly that, private. The moment money changes hands for your flying services, you've crossed into commercial territory and need a different certificate entirely. Getting your private pilot license isn't just about logging flight hours. There are two formal tests standing between you and that certificate, and both need to be taken seriously. The first is the Written Knowledge Test, officially called the FAA Private Pilot Knowledge Test. This is a computer-based exam with 60 multiple-choice questions covering everything from aviation regulations and airspace rules to weather, navigation, and aerodynamics. You need a score of 70% or higher to pass, and you have 2.5 hours to complete it. Most well-prepared students score in the 80s. You can take the written test at any FAA-approved testing center, and the fee is around $175. Before you're allowed to sit the exam, your instructor needs to give you a written endorsement confirming you're ready. Study materials are widely available. The FAA publishes the entire question bank publicly, so there are no surprises. Most students use online practice platforms and study for anywhere between 20 and 40 hours before feeling confident. The second test is the practical exam, commonly known as the checkride. This is the big one. The checkride is conducted by an FAA-designated pilot examiner, a DPE, and it has two parts. The first part is an oral exam where the examiner sits across from you and asks questions about regulations, weather, aircraft systems, and your planned flight. This typically lasts 1 to 2 hours and can feel intense, but preparation makes a huge difference. The second part is the flight portion, where you actually go up in the airplane and demonstrate maneuvers and procedures to the examiner. They'll ask you to perform things like steep turns, stalls, emergency procedures, and landings. The examiner is evaluating whether you meet the standards laid out in the FAA's Airman Certification Standards, a document that lists exactly what you need to demonstrate and how well. The checkride typically costs between $700 and $900 depending on your location and examiner. If you fail a specific section, you don't have to redo the entire test, just the portion you didn't pass called a retest or pink slip. Pass rates vary, but with solid preparation, most students pass on their first attempt. The key is treating the checkride not as a test, but as a demonstration of what you already know. Your private pilot license opens a lot of doors, but it doesn't cover everything. Certain aircraft and certain types of flying require additional endorsements from a certified instructor before you're legally allowed to operate them. These aren't full licenses. They're sign-offs that confirm you've received specific training and demonstrated the necessary competency. The most common one is the tailwheel endorsement. Most modern training aircraft have a nose wheel, which makes ground handling relatively forgiving. Tailwheel aircraft, like the Piper Cub or the Stinson 108 we talked about in a previous video, handle completely differently on the ground and require a separate endorsement. It typically takes 5 to 10 hours of instruction and is considered a valuable skill that makes you a more complete pilot. Next is the high-performance endorsement. This applies to any aircraft with an engine producing more than 200 horsepower. As you move into faster, more capable aircraft, the systems become more complex and the airplane demands more from the pilot. A quick course with an instructor is required before you can log those flights legally. There's also the complex aircraft endorsement, which covers planes with retractable landing gear, flaps, and a controllable pitch propeller, all operating together. Managing these systems adds a layer of workload that requires dedicated training, Finally, if you ever want to fly on instruments through clouds and low visibility, you'll need an instrument rating, which is a significant additional qualification beyond the PPL, requiring dedicated training and its own written and practical tests. None of these endorsements are difficult to obtain, but they exist for good reason. Each one represents a genuine step up in complexity, and the training behind them makes you a safer and more capable pilot. All right, let's talk about what everyone actually wants to know. How much is this going to cost, and how long is it going to take? Let's break it down item by item. The medical certificate runs about $150. The student pilot certificate is completely free. You apply online through the FAA's system called IACRA, provide some basic identification, and they issue it digitally at no cost. Ground school, which you can do entirely online these days, is around $300. The written knowledge test is $175. The check ride with your examiner is about $1,100. And on day one, you'll need a headset and a logbook. Budget about $300 for that. As you progress through training, you'll add more tools and resources, but that's genuinely all you need to get started. The biggest expense by far is flight training itself, at a blended average of $175 per hour, accounting for both dual instruction time with your instructor and the cheaper solo hours, and with most students finishing around 65 hours. That's $11,375 in flight training alone. Add everything together, and if you're disciplined and fly consistently, you're looking at about $13,400. But for most students who deal with weather delays, scheduling gaps, and the occasional bad lesson, the real number lands closer to $15,000 to $18,000. And if you look at real student reports online, most people are actually landing closer to that $16,000 to $18,000 range. Flying consistently, at least 2 or 3 times per week, is the most effective way to keep costs down. Skills deteriorate between lessons, and inconsistent training means more hours to reach the same level. Every extra hour in the airplane is another $175 to $220 out of your pocket. As for the timeline, most students finish in about 12 months of regular training. Some highly motivated students flying frequently have done it in 4 to 6 months. Others flying only on weekends take closer to 2 years. The honest answer is that it takes as long as it takes, but with consistency and dedication, becoming a licensed pilot in under a year is absolutely achievable. And that's everything you actually need to fly a plane in the USA. A medical certificate, a student pilot certificate, your private pilot license, 2 tests, and depending on what you want to fly, a few extra endorsements along the way. It's not a simple overnight process, and it's not cheap. But think about what's on the other side of it. The ability to climb into a cockpit, take off, and go wherever you want. That's not something many people can say they've done, and the ones who have will tell you it was worth every dollar and every hour. The biggest mistake most aspiring pilots make is waiting. They tell themselves they'll start when the timing is better, when they have more money saved, when life slows down a little, and years go by. If this is something you've always wanted to do, the best time to take the first step is now. Book that medical exam. Find a local flight school. Go sit in a cockpit and talk to an instructor. You don't have to commit to the whole journey on day one. You just have to start. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe, because we cover everything aviation right here, from the best budget aircraft on the market to what it really takes to get in the air. And if you have questions about anything we covered today, drop them in the comments. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.